Hey everyone. So I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about the Halo U 02 update on its own. Now, of course, when I talk about Halo U, which is an AI creative software, I talk about it along with everybody else. Now, just to make a quick summary, the other outlets that I use, like Google's VEO 3 and 2, Kling, Luma, Pixverse, VDU, VIDU, and even Pika, I think I still use Pika to an extent, and Runaway, I do use Runaway. They all, on their own are trying to improve and get better. They really are. I mean, I just recently used VEO 2 and 3 from Google to take a screenshot from the Catwoman Hunted movie, anthology movie, if you will, to where it's a scene between her and Batwoman, and it looks like they're about to kiss, but they don't. But the AI, of course, allows you to make that happen. And VEO 3 and 2 by Google allows you to extend it even more. It allows you to extend it even more. And that's what I did. I had them kiss. I had them get put into a bed. Basically, it placed them in a bed without I said, basically in the prompt, I said, have them lie down. But instead, it had them in a bed already. I'll put them in a bed, just like that. And then I said, have them put the sheet over their heads. And it did it. It did it. But I couldn't really get anything beyond that because, they do have, kind of I wouldn't say it's limited, but it's mostly like, descriptive wise. It's like a descriptive limitation of, yeah, you can continue the scene, but you can't make it too suggestive, if you know what I mean. You can't make it too suggestive, if you know what I mean. So, I was able to do that and everything. But yeah, all of them outside of Halo U are trying to get to that point, like Halo U, to become the AI service, the creative software service that gives you what you want exactly the way you want after you put in the prompt, either for an image to video, text to photo, you name it. So it's getting close to that opportunity. But Halo U, when they brought out the 02 update, to me that was an answer to basically Google's VEO 2 and 3, to Kling's 2.1 Master and 2.1 Regular, to Luma to an extent, to another extent, VIDUs, and the Q1 update. That's what this felt like. It felt like this 02 update by Halo U was an answer to all of those. Because all of those are basically taking it to the level of trying to get close to what you want via the prompt you put in. Like I said, either by image to video or text to video. So they decided, okay, we're going to kind of go back to our roots and show you how it's done, because I believe the one thing that attracted a lot of people like me to Halo U in the first place last year, I believe it was last year, was the fact that they were one of those AI creative services that would give you what you want. You put it in, they give you what you want. The only thing that held them back was basically the fact that, one, they didn't have no extension, so you couldn't extend the scene, and they didn't have any transition. They didn't have no transition, like frame to frame, option. It was only one singular frame or one singular, prompt that you could have made, and that's it. But it was image-wise, you couldn't do frame to frame, but you get the idea, right? You get the idea. There was no extension, no frame to frame transition or whatever, none of that. But still they gave you what you wanted. But over time, they started kind of losing their way to where they were focusing more on, doing camera updates, director updates, stuff like that, which is all good. Which is all good for those that really want to go out there and try to find something that's going to get them into that field of filmmaking, CGI, AI, 2D animated, live action, and all that. That's good and everything. Give them a bit of practice. But there are those that just want to have something on the side to use as a hobby. Something to, kill the time with. Just have a little fun on the side with. And apparently, like I said, Halo U lost their way. They lost their way, and it wasn't until recently, I think, with the official debut of Google's VEO 3 and 2, and then the updates for VIDU, like VIDU's Q1, and Luma doing some updates, and everything with the Ray 2 and Ray 2 Flash, and so on, and Kling doing, like I said, the 2.1 Master and 2.1 Non-Master. it wasn't until that stuff started showing, showing its hand and everything, that I believe it woke the people up behind the Halo AI service and said, hey, we can do it better. And then basically by doing it better, they decided we're going to go back to our roots, but we're going to show you how it's done when people want something via prompt. And I can tell you honestly, the results have been tremendous. The results have been tremendous. Now, one thing I've been doing lately, and I want to credit Google's CEO for this, is I've been going the claymation route. Now, one of the things I also do as well is after I put in a prompt, and then I copy and paste the prompt, and then in between maybe 4 or 5 parentheses before and after, I paste the prompt in between those. So, in other words, I'll type in something like, such and such happens here with da-da-da here, and then I'll copy and paste that, put like 4 parentheses afterwards, and then, or space first, and then put 4 parentheses afterwards, and then I'll paste my original prompt after that, and then put 4 or 5 parentheses after that, so that it emphasizes, because this is a suggestion, I'm trying to find the right words to say, find the right word to say, this is a suggestion that those at pseudo-write suggest you do. That basically you copy and paste what you want to happen, even if you have to copy and paste your whole prompt to emphasize what you want to see happen. So that's what I do. I put my prompt in, I copy it, then I space, then I put like 4 or 5 parentheses, paste the prompt after that, and put another 4 or 5 parentheses, and there you go. But then afterwards, what I'll do is I'll put 4 or 5 more parentheses, I'll space, put 4 or 5 more parentheses, and then I'll say, make it cinematic, or make it cartoony cinematic, or make it seductively cinematic, or make it claymation cinematic. And then I'll put 4 or 5 parentheses after that to emphasize what I'm saying, what I want. So basically, I've been doing that lately with VEO 3 and 2, because one thing I've done is I've been going online to Google, and I've been, looking at screenshots from the 86 Sledgehammer music video, like the fruit face one, with the fruit surrounding Peter, and, then he becomes a fruit face, and then even the claymation part and all that. So I've been kind of, clicking screenshots from from the video, and then I've been going over to ChatGPT and even to an extent Gemini, and I've been saying make a female version of this scene, and I will, through both, mostly ChatGPT, get a female version of it in claymation form. Then what will I do? Or even live action form for the stop motion of the fruit face deal. But then what will I do? Well, what I've done with VEO 3 and 2 by Google is I'll go over to them, and I will go into the prompt, and I will go to the prompt area, and I will say, like with the claymation, I'll say, have her face morph into, morph shapeshift into this, with her lips on the thing that she becomes. I'm trying to find the right word to say here, guys. On the thing that she becomes. Or when it comes to the fruit face part, I'll say, have the fruit surround her face and make it into a fruit face, or stuff like that. And basically, I will kind of get something close to what I'm asking for. I will. Does it take a couple of tries? Absolutely. Absolutely takes a couple of tries. But I will get close to what I'm asking for. And that's cool. And that's really cool. So I decided, okay, what would happen if I went and used the whole make it claymation cinematic, or make it claymation style, or make it seductively cinematic, or make it cinematic? What would happen if I used that on Halo U? Well, I did it, and some of the results were pretty good. But then I decided, you know what? One of the things I've been suggested to check out is the Club MPV, which is short for Mud Puddle Visuals. It's basically a bunch of models that do video shoots and photo shoots of basically, having fun, if you will, quote unquote, fun in mud, clay, quicksand, and even Obi Blick, if you will, which is some kind of gooey substance or whatever. And they have fun in it, and they even submerge into it. So I decided, okay, I'm going to go to one of their outlets where you can buy the video individually, not, not in a well, you can do it in a compilation, but you can also do it individually. I went to one of their outlets, UMD, And in the previews, they have all the screenshots for what will be seen in the video shoot. So I decided to look up certain ones that I felt were appropriate, but if needed to be edited and cleaned, I would. And I go to cleanup.pictures to do that, cleanup.pictures to do that. So anyway, I chose certain images, like from Summer, one of the models, submerging in black, kind of a swamp. Basically they took an empty hole, dug an empty hole somewhere in a forest or out back somewhere, and they dumped a lot of the ubi black in there, made it like a swamp thing, and they had Summer go in there to kind of sink for you or submerge for you or whatever, or be the bride of Swamp Thing or whatever. Anyway, I decided, okay, I'm going to look at certain images that I felt would be accepted as appropriate by Halo's AI, or Halo Use AI, or have to be edited just slightly. So I chose them. And then I went and saw another model that loves to, obviously by reputation loves to do this kind of stuff, Lena. I decided, okay, I'm going to do her. Boom. Take a few of those. Boom. Same with another, Stavia, I think it's her name. I did it with her. And then another one that's very well known by people that watch this stuff, Kimberly. So I went and got them, and then I tried them out. But they weren't the only ones. I also, by recommendation, being on UMD, went to the area known as WAM, which is W.A.M, short for wet and messy. And there's a couple of models on there that do more than just the mud and the quicksand and the clay. One is called the Muddy Temptress, and the other is called Stella. And like I say, they do more than just the mud and the clay and the quicksand, which they do, and they do it great, apparently. From what I heard, they do it great. But they also do some other stuff. They allow themselves, from what I've heard and even seen, because I was suggested to go here to find some images that might be, perfect for what I wanted to do. And, there are times they'll allow themselves to submerge into fluffy cream, like fluffy whipped cream that's been put into a tub, or a tub, if you will, or whatever, barrel. Or they'll allow themselves to be covered up with, all kinds of substance, like, all kinds of gunky stuff, like, chocolate, mustard, ketchup, you name it, they'll allow it to happen. They'll allow it to happen. And I thought, okay, let me see what I can do here. So I looked up certain images that I felt, again, like I mentioned before, could be accepted as appropriate, but also could be touched up by cleanup.pictures. So I went, found certain ones from Muddy Temptress, and I found some from Stella, and I said, okay, that's good. But then what I did, because like I said, going back to what I did with Google VEO, when I started saying, hey, make it claymation at the end of the prompt, and it would do exactly what I asked, I decided, okay, let's see what happens if I say, make it seductively cinematic, like with the mud ones and everything. And they would give me what I asked for, and they would do it tremendously. And what I would ask for is I would have them basically melt, submerge into the mud, and then as a result, I would have like a visage, an imprint, indent of their face show up on the mud. And sometimes it's not exactly the face, but it's a representation of it. And when I would see this, I'd be like, "Oh, that's pretty good." So just for fun, I would also have put into the prompt, I would basically I'm trying to say this the right way, trying to word it the way I want to word it. But basically, I would say, I would tell the prompt, I put in the prompt, do all this, have them, melt, submerge into the mud and all that, right? And then have the indent imprint of the face show up under the mud, right? So what I would do, just out of fun, I would also say, have under it, or have them say, but it would actually be in words, they wouldn't say it, but have them say, I'm part of the goo now, or I'm part of the mud now. And it would do it. Because to me, I'm thinking if you're going to have them submerge anyway, and sometimes from what I understand, the videos do end with them completely submerged and all that, unless you get like a bonus afterwards where they come up and everything. But still, I understand that they're basically submerged completely, at the end of the video. I'm thinking, why not act like they're part of the mud now? Why not show some kind of representation of, hey, they're part of the mud now, to kind of really make it fun and interesting and all that, even though it's just, for funsies, for the adults, if you will. Why not do that? And, you know, they never did, so I decided, hey, we got this technology now, why not do it? And, you know, that's what I ended up doing. That's what I ended up doing. I ended up basically, doing that with some of these images that I downloaded from the previews. And it wasn't just, and again, I would do it with, saying at the end of the prompt, trying to word this the way I want to word it. I would do this by saying at the end of the prompt, make it look cinematic and make it look seductively cinematic, and they would do it. They would do it, I guess, as the AI would look at it. But then I decided, okay, I'm going to do what I did with VEO. When it came to the sledgehammer stuff and the female version and all that, I said, I'm going to do the claymation part. So I would say at the end of I would put in the same prompts. I would put in the same prompts I said before. I've said before. You'll have them submerged and then the face shows on the mud, saying they're part of the mud now, whatever. And I would say, okay, at the end of that, instead of saying making it look seductively cinematic, I would say make it claymation cinematic. And the results I would get would be good, if not better, than having it made look, it would be better. I'm trying to find the words right. Hold on. I'm getting a little tongue-tied, guys. This is what happens when you do unscripted audio on camera vids. But like I said, I would basically say, instead of make it seductively cinematic at the end of the prompt, I would say make it claymation cinematic, and the results I would get were actually pretty good and more. And I hate to say this, more believable, even though it was done claymation-wise and in a stop-motion-like manner. And you know what? It gave me the feel of one of those old-school like movies and everything in the past, not just the 80s and 70s and all that, but even a little earlier, where basically they would use stop-motion and claymation, along with live action. That's what it made me. That's what it made me think of. Kind of remind me of. That's what it did. It reminded me of that, and I'm thinking this is pretty cool. So I decided, okay, I'm going to take it a step further. So I thought, okay, if these ladies want to be, covered in mud because that's their job, they get paid to do it. At least they get a percentage. I'm sure they get paid. But anyway, I decided, well, if these ladies want to be covered completely in mud, or at least close to it, what would happen if, let's say, they had the ability, being covered now in the mud, the quicksand, the clay, the oblique, or whatever, what if they had the ability to shapeshift, to morph into different things? And I decided, let's try that. So I decided, okay, Summer's going to submerge or melt into the mud, and then she's going to morph into a car with her face on the hood. And then guess what happens? We ended up getting that, or at least close to it. And sometimes it does take a few shots, if you will. It does take a few, retries. Even with Halo Use 02 update, it takes a few retries. Because sometimes, you'll get the face, but you get like a human face. What you're looking for is just like the lips and the eyes, just sticking on the, being on the hood or the front window of the car they become. Basically making it look like they become the car, they become the vehicle. So. At most times, though, I would get exactly what I'm asking for, and again, I would add in, the saying. I would add in that saying I wanted them to put, which is "I'm part of the goo now," and everything, which is pretty cool. And so I decided, okay, the car thing works. What about turn them into a tree, and have the tree thing happen? And that worked. Same thing, face on the bark of the tree and stuff like that. And then I thought, okay, what about some roses? Faces on a bunch of the roses. And some of that worked. Not extensively, but some of that did work. And then I thought, okay, what if they were a vanity dresser, and have the face on the vanity, or at least, on the vanity dresser part, whatever. That worked to an extent. So I thought that was cool. I thought that was cool and everything. And then if that's not all, I decided, okay, what if they basically shapeshift into a group of tendrils, if you will, group of tendrils, tentacles, whatever you want to call them. And what if that happens there, and then the face is on one of those? Well, it did it, not, kind of close to what I want, but not precisely. Like the face would be light in the middle and everything, but it was decent. I thought it was pretty cool. And so I decided, okay, that worked with the mud and clay. What about, let's say, the temptress and the stellar person of the wham, of the wet and messy? So I did it there, and it worked pretty well. Now again, it does take some, retries here and there to get it right or get it close to what you want. But at the end, it's pretty cool. But there is a risk too. It's a risk and kind of bittersweet risk. The risk basically being is, even if the image seems okay or you've already touched it up to where it's passable, the AI may just like moments later retract it, but in return refund you. So the credits you've used will be refunded back to you so you can use them again. Now the other thing, that's kind of cool, but it does show what I've said before in a video, in an audio video. It does show what I said before, and that is AI is improving. It is improving, it's still learning. But the other thing I noticed that HaloU did, a little after they updated the system with the 0.2 update, the 0.2 update that took them back to what brought them to the dance. The other thing they did was they added in the 512p resolution. Now before this, when they did the 0.2 update, the only two resolutions you had was 758p, basically 720p, and 1080p. And the only way you could get 10 seconds and everything was to go 50 credits at 1080p. Because if you didn't, and you decided, okay, I don't want to spend that much, I just want to spend 25, then you would go to 720, 758p, 720p, 758p route, and you'd get 6 seconds, and you'd only be spending 25. Because if you spend 50, even if, let's say, you got the 5,000 credit deal, if you got the 5,000 credit deal, that'd still be a lot going straight down the drain, if you know what I mean, going straight down the drain and everything. So, yeah, it's one of those situations to where basically you wanted that length, you wanted that extra 4 seconds, but you didn't want to spend too much. Well, HaloU obviously saw that people were complaining, or at least I think they heard that people were complaining, and thought, okay, we can still give them the 10 seconds, but we're going to reduce the resolution, and that's what they did. So by adding in the 512p, which is equivalent to around 480, if not 480, 540, 480p, 540p, by adding in the 512, which again, like I said, is the equivalent of 480p, 540p, by adding that in, they've now allowed people to save on the credits. So instead of spending 25 credits for 6 seconds, with the 512p option, you only have to spend 12 credits, which is pretty cool. And for 10 seconds, all you have to do is spend 25, for 512p. And it's pretty decent. The image is pretty decent. So, and there's no blurriness or anything. It's basically like the way you would get with 720 and 1080, except the resolution isn't as, high quality. It's basically standards, like it's in between. It's in between the original HD and, HD standard. It's kind of like an SD on BD, we'll put it that way. It's like standard definition on Blu-ray, like what Discotech does. And the result, is pretty nice. It's pretty nice. And I've been using that a lot lately too to save on credits. Now, some of the images that I said that image the videos that I said I was able to make, I can't show here on the YT because, that would basically not be a good thing. But there are some images I can probably pass with, if you will. For example, I decided, okay, if I can do it with these these kind of situations, what would happen if I took Babs Bunny from Europe in 30 Minutes, the Europe in 30 Minutes episode of the OG Tiny Toons, and the last episode of OG Tiny Toons, officially the wonderful Tiny Toon Christmas? What if I was to take that and say, okay, we know she melts in them. So what if I was to take the screenshots of her about to melt, or in the process of melting, or even afterwards? What if I was to take that and say, okay, she's going to melt into a puddle. Like, let's say I want her to, like I said, I take the screenshot. You'll see it here, hopefully, where she melts. But instead of her just melting, she suddenly reforms into like a tree or a vanity dresser or a car with her face on it. I decided, what if I was to take that and make it happen? Well, that's what I did. And it actually worked out pretty well. And then I decided, you know what, there's another scene from a movie I watched growing up, and that I thought, well, if they made it any sillier, it would actually fit in with the movie. And that's Alice in Wonderland from Disney. And I got to give a shout out to Rowdy C for re-uploading his reviews of all the other Alice in Wonderland movies that were done in the 80s and 90s. That got me thinking about this. But there's this scene at the beginning of the movie where she's singing a song in a world of my own, and she's laying down, basically submerging under the bed of flowers. So I thought, why not take the scene, why not take that scene, or at least part of it, if I can find it, where she's about to lay down, and use that to see where we can go. And that's what I did. And then there's the scene where she's, coming up from the flowers, I guess being called by her teacher, her homeschool teacher, her teacher or whatever, her mom, whatever. And basically I thought, well, what if we took that scene as well and went the route I wanted? And that's what I did. Because basically what I did, and you'll see it here hopefully, is she lays down both times. I have her lay down both times, but then I say, have her get engulfed. Have her get engulfed by the flowers and everything, or submerged into the flower bed, and then next thing we know, we see her face completely made into flowers, and she says she's part of the flowers now. And it works. It actually worked. I was like, oh, this is tremendous. This is perfect. This is absolutely perfect. And I just wanted to do more of it. I just wanted to do more of it. So I then decided, okay, this is scene. And you got to remember, I was a teenager when this version of Secret Garden came out. But there's a scene, and they would show it in the trailers, to where the kid, of course, our main protagonist finds the secret garden. She wants to share it with her friends. So basically, there's this one scene where she goes in, and then, just to make sure everything's in the clear, but then all of a sudden she sticks her hand out and does the come hither gesture and everything. And all you see is her hand, and I'm thinking, that's kind of fun, it's kind of silly, but what if it was to take it a little further, and she became part of the flowers, or became part of the plant? So I went that direction, and the result I got was pretty good. So basically what I'm saying is, with Halo U 02, you can get what you want, especially if you, at the end of your prompt, emphasize how you want it to look. Like if you want it to look cinematic, seductively cinematic, cartoony cinematic, or claymation cinematic, or even stop motion wise, you can get it, and it's actually pretty nice. It's actually pretty nice and everything. But again, the other suggestion that of all places to do right put out is if you really want what you want to be seen, you got to not only type up that prompt, but you got to copy and paste that prompt, put it in between some parentheses before and after, and you should be good to go. You should be able to get what you want. So, yeah. Overall, I'm going to say this about the 02 update from Halo U. That's HAILUO from Halo U. I'm going to say this right now. I think it's a vast improvement, and it's definitely going to give, if not already has, given Google's VEO 3 and 2, as well as VIDU's Q1, as well as their 2.0 tiers and updates, if you will. It's going to give Luma and everything. It's going to give them a run for their money. It's definitely going to give them a run for the money from the individual perspective. It's going to give them a run for the money for that top spot individually. No transitions, no extensions, or what have you. It's going to give them a run for the money. But I guarantee, once Halo U does add in the frame-to-frame, if you will, the transitions, and once they add in the extensions, basically extending the scene for either unlimited amount of time or maybe 30 seconds or minutes worth, once they do that, all I'm going to say is it's going to be game over. Because once they add in the frame-to-frame, or the transition, if you will, and then the extension, either by unlimitedness or even by a minute, it's going to be game over. End of story. End of story. And the same could be said for VIDU. Once they add that in as well, mostly the extension part, they're going to give VEO 3 and 2 of Google, a run for the money. Luma is going to be given a run for the money. Kling is going to be given a run for the money. because both of these ones, mostly Halo U right now, understands what you need to be doing. You need to be giving the consumer what they ask. And again, once they add in those features, Halo U gets both of those up and going, it's going to be game over. I guarantee you. I guarantee you it. And the same for VIDU. Once they add in the extension, they and Halo U are going to be almost neck and neck, you know, with VEO 3 and 2, Google and Kling. Guarantee, and Luma. I guarantee it. I absolutely guarantee it. But if you haven't checked out Halo U, HAILUO, and a 02 update, I recommend checking it out. I think you'll get a kick out of it and basically what you can and cannot do. Again, one of the things that is showing you it's still improving is they will allow certain images to be utilized, and they will be, you know, made into what you want, but they will be retracted. And that's the other key thing too. Once it does happen, even though they might get retracted, be quick on the ball. As soon as you see it get made, you know, go and download it no matter what the result is. Even if you have to go back and retry it, go and download it, you know, and get that .mp4 file, because if not, you're going to get a .xml file. So be quick on the ball as well. When you see the video, or when you see the prompt get made into a video, be quick on the ball, you know, and basically make sure that, you know, you get in .mp4 file and not a .xml file. Because if you get a .xml file, that means they've retracted it, they've refunded you, which is a good thing, but then you got to re-edit, if you will. You got to re-edit it and go from there. So if it goes through and the video is made, be quick. Get the .mp4 before you get a .xml. But overall, though, again, like I said, I suggest trying it out. It's really great and everything. And I know AI is not for everybody. Let me make that perfectly clear. I know AI is not for everybody, but you know, I think at least for a fun on-the-side hobby creativeness, you know, just to kill some time, I think it is definitely worth looking into. But that's all I'm going to say, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comment section, as well as in the live chat during Premiere if you haven't already done it. Do me a favor, like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, share the video. Also, click on the links in the description to find my content elsewhere outside of YouTube, as well as click on the link on the bottom to go to my Teespring store for merchandise you can't get anywhere else. But until next time, guys, I will talk to you later, and until then, I'm out.